Hi, this is Clint Richardson with the Corporation Nation and Clint4P.com, as well as the reality blog. Today I just wanted to take a break from doing all this vaccine research because it's a little bit heavy on the soul, and I wanted to talk to you again about the CAFR situation, about the financial structure of government. Something I actually haven't covered in any detail is called the Commingled Fund. Now, each state basically has a what you might call a mutual fund where all of the cities, townships, and other incorporated municipalities or municipal corporations, which are all created by the state corporation, which is, if you go all the way up to the top, becomes a federal corporation. Each state has been usurped into that function because we are talking about a corporate structure as government. Now, what I want to talk about today are these Commingled funds. Basically, it's called, in Utah, it's called the State Treasurer's Investment Fund, um, or the Public Treasurer's Investment Fund, I believe is the term. I don't actually have the Utah uh, report up, but I do know that from the city CAFR of the Salt Lake City Corporation and from the county corporation that they both have over $300 million stashed away in this Commingled Fund, this state treasurer's investment fund. Now, I'm not going to get into Utah because Utah is a fairly small, a small bird to small fish to fry. What we're going to do is we're going to take a little look at California, because California is just this huge conglomerate. What is the eighth largest corporation in the world, something like that. So we're gonna just pull up the state Commingled funds that California governments are involved in, and again, it's like a mutual fund where all the cities and counties, the municipal corporations, all invest in. And this is very important because we're talking about trillions of dollars around the country. And that's why I'm covering this today, because this is where your money goes. This is you as a taxpayer paying this into the government, and the government is putting your money into a fund, or I should say a series of funds, and those funds can be anything from the general fund, which you'll find actually listed on your taxpayer budget, but all the other fiduciary funds and enterprise funds you will not, because these are businesses. For instance, the fund that supports the golf courses, or the fund that supports the water and sewer districts. Now we have the sheriff is now a special district here. And so what you'll find is that all of these cities and counties are contributing to this fund, this mutual fund. So let's get right into it. Let's start with, how did this get started? What is the law that states that this can actually happen? And what we find is that it comes from UCC code, Universal Commercial Code. Now, some people actually don't even believe that exists, but of course it's on the government website, so it exists. So let's get started here. Now, we're going to start at the top, of course, because we need to know what the precedent was that created the ability for states to create these funds, for more specifically for the state treasurer to create these funds on behalf of, or so-called on behalf of, the people. Well, yeah, it's on behalf of the corporation. So what you're looking at here is the Revised Code of Washington, or the RCW, Title 43. This is U.S. Code. Title 43, entitled State Government, under the Executive section. Of course, this is prima facie law, but in this case, that doesn't really matter because we're talking about the government and how it controls and functions with our taxpayer money. And it's entitled Commingled Trust Funds, Participation of Funds in Investments of Board. It simply states that the State Investment Board is authorized to establish commingled trust funds in the state treasury for the implementation of specific investment programs for any combination of funds under its jurisdiction. Okay? At the discretion of the State Investment Board, the funds under the jurisdiction of the Board may participate in the investments made by the Board through State Investment Board commingled trust funds. The State Investment Board may establish accounts which any such commingled trust fund is as necessary for the implementation of specific investment programs. The combining of monies from funds located outside the state treasury with monies from funds located within the state treasury for investment under this section shall not affect the nature, character, or purpose of a participating fund. Well, all this does really is set up the precedent that says, hey, each state can now create their own investment funds. They're what's called a trust fund. Generally, they like to tell us that it's on behalf of the people. Of course, that's not really the case, but they like to tell us that. So this is the precedent, or the top level aspect of where this is coming from. So now we come to the California Commercial Code, section 9336, and several other sections as well are revolve around this, but it just basically talks about commingled goods and what a security is and what it can and can't be. Again, the precedent for this product, this service at the barrel of a gun, essentially, to be set up for each government. But now we actually get into the fund itself, and this is the California State Treasurer's website, Smart Investments for California's Future. California being a multinational corporation at this point, essentially. But Bill Lockyer is the state treasurer, and of course, when we look up who Bill could possibly be, this almost snake-like looking gentleman just happens to be he happens to be a former California Attorney General, and of course, that means that he is an attorney, which means that he takes the oath to the bar and that he is a member of a foreign corporation with his allegiance pledged to that bar. Okay, so we know that 70 to 80% of our politicians are lawyers and attorneys. This is very much a problem and why things have gotten out of hand. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna come across is what's called the Pooled Money Investment Account, or PMIA, and the Local Agency Investment Fund, LAIF. When we go to the PMIA and we click on the Overview section, here's what we find. Through the Pooled Money Investment Account, or PMIA, the state treasurer invests taxpayers' money to manage the state's cash flow and strengthen the financial security of local government entities. PMIA policy sets as primary investment objectives safety, liquidity, and yield. In other words, they want to make a profit off of your taxpayer money. The investment division of the State Treasurer's Office manages the PMIA under statutory authority granted by California Government Code, Section 16430 and 16480.4. The Pooled Money Investment Board governs the PMIA. The State Treasurer chairs the board, which also includes the State Controller and the State Director of Finance. Now here's where we start finding out what's going on here. The PMIA has three primary sources of funds: the State General Fund, special funds held by state agencies, and monies deposited by cities, counties, and other entities into the Local Agency Investment Fund, or LAIF. At the end of August 2011, the PMI portfolio totaled $63 billion. The daily investment activity in August of 2011 averaged $409 million. Investment division staff invest PMIA funds in a wide range of securities, using more than 100 brokers, dealers, banks, and direct issuers of commercial paper and corporate debt. By law, PMIA monies can be invested only in the following categories: U.S. government securities, meaning federal securities essentially, securities of federally sponsored agencies, domestic corporate bonds, interest-bearing time deposits in California banks, savings and loan associations, and credit unions, very important, prime-related commercial paper, repurchase of reverse purchase agreements, security loans, bankers' acceptances, negotiable certificates of deposit, and loans to various bond funds. Okay. The LAIF allows cities, counties, and special districts to place money in a major portfolio and, at no additional cost to the taxpayers, use the expertise of investment division staff. Participating agencies can withdraw their funds from the LAIF at any time. Very important. That means your city can get this fund, these funds, I should say, this money, this taxpayer money, and use it to help you. It's simple as that. At the end of August 2011, the LAIF had $2 1,783 participating agencies and a balance of $23 billion. Huh. Boy, all this money just sitting there and you don't even know it's there. It's all hidden in plain sight, you see. Under the time deposit program, the PMIA provides money to community banks at competitive rates. Eligible institutions are commercial banks, savings banks, and credit unions that are federally insured and licensed to accept deposits in the state of California. Banks which receive time deposit funds can use the money to expand economic opportunity and create jobs in the communities they serve. The banks are serving you, you see. Just to translate, so that you understand how your government works. Okay, first of all, I've uncovered in great detail with the Great Pension Fund hoax and my other work that the government owns these banks that they're depositing these monies into. You can't even start a bank without getting government permission. So, what this says is that your taxpayer money is actually being collected from you. It's then being put into this this pooled money investment account, and then it is being transferred out of that account, that fund, I should say, the local investment fund, and it is being given to banks. You see, so what's happening is our taxpayer money is collectively being taken from us, and then it is being given to banks, to re-loan our money to us. Instead of using the taxpayer money that is collected to actually pay for roads and schools and all of these things, no, they don't do that, you see. That's not how the game works, because they want that money in these funds, because that's the only way they can make a profit off of your taxpayer money, is to invest that money. So they give it to their investment-held or stock-held banks, which in turn loan your own taxpayer money back to you, and actually what's funny is they loan it back to themselves. So the government takes your taxpayer money, puts it in a bank, and then the bank loans that money back to the government. I mean, it's nuts. This is how your financial system works. This is the crime, the financial terrorism that's happening all the time in every state. Just look up your local, your state Commingled Fund, and you will see that you have the same thing going on in your state. Commingled funds are very common. There's also multiple funds in each state. All right, so now we have the understanding that our money is actually being used against us. It's actually being it's being it's being used in a constant state of usury, where they're making money off of our money and then charging us interest to use our money, even though it's taxpayer money, because it goes into those banks. All right, so here's the California State Treasurer's side again. We're going to go down the list, and we see a section called Annual Reports. Okay, so the annual reports, we see 2009-2010 fiscal year, and this is for the pooled money investment account. So we're going to pull that report up, and what we get is this, the 54th annual report. That means this thing's been around for 54 years, for 2009-2010. There's old Bill down there. The Pooled Money Investment Board, PMIB, created by the legislature in 1955, is comprised of the state treasurer as chairman, da-da-da-da-da. We kind of all got into all of this. Here's the year in review, where we see that the average daily portfolio, meaning the amount of money that is invested in these securities and other investments, was $65 billion in California, and this is just in this one fund, with earnings of $423 million. That's just wonderful that our government is putting our money and getting a 0.65 yield. I can get better than that in a regular savings account. I mean, this is kind of ridiculous, actually, when you think about it, because what it's doing is it's enabling the banks to then loan that money, and they're making huge profits from the banks. Okay, this is what's really going on. And we can see in this chart comparisons of the portfolio balance and earnings. We see that the average daily portfolio balance has been increasing every year. Uh, in 2001 it was 43 billion. Now it's up to 65 billion in 2010. And we can see that generally the earnings potential for this fund is in the billions. So here we have $2.9 billion dollars of profit that was made from this fund. Now, this money, some of this money does go back to the local governments, as it says here. Approximately 156 million of this amount was credited to the units of local government as a result of their deposits in our investment pool. So yes, some of that money is going back to the local corporate structure, but that doesn't account for the rest of the $270 million we're talking about, of course. But you see, that money that goes back to the local governments then goes into other funds, and those funds are, of course, used for other things. Again, it's a complete criminal activity, and it is organized crime. That's the worst part about it, and it's well organized crime. How about that? Here we can see the summary statistics. We actually see that total resources down here at the bottom were 70 billion, 918 million. But up here it states that earnings breaks down the earnings: 349 million from security investments, 9.4 million from bank time deposits, and 65 million from general fund loans. So again, the government is making loans. It's just not what government's supposed to be doing. Here we read that the investments of the PMIA are made from monies flowing through the Treasurer's demand or non-interest-bearing bank accounts maintained in 8 banks that serve as state depositories. As of June 30th, 2010, the 8 depository banks were Bank of America, Union Bank, Bank of the West, U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo Bank, West America Bank, Citibank, and my personal favorite, J.P. Morgan Chase. We're talking about the big conglomerate banks here. These are national banks, not necessarily state banks. They're national banks. Okay, most of them probably incorporated in Delaware. The balances allowed for banking services represent compensation for handling 283,468 bank deposits, 44.7 million checks deposited, 331,194 dishonored checks. In other words, the government apparently is writing bad checks. 966.4 million in currency deposited, 9.5 million in coin deposited, and 135.9 million warrants paid. So can you imagine that the government here, where it says 331,000 dishonored checks, you know what that means? That means that the government's purposefully writing bad checks so that the bank can collect fees for bad checks. That's all that means. In addition to the rates shown below, the state agreed to include the costs of account reconciliation and electronic funds transfer services within the compensating balance formula. Starting in 1991-1992 fiscal year, the cost of these two services are paid with balances on a lagged actual basis when billed by each bank. During the 2009 and 2010 fiscal year, a total of $105 billion was collected under the EFT contract, and approximately $2.1 trillion flowed in and out of the state treasurer's demand accounts. Now, obviously, these banks are making bank off of the services that they are providing. Services being late fees and bad check fees and all these other things. So, we go to the schedule of banking services for this year, 2010 fiscal year, and we see that total banking service fees totaled $9.64 million. That is what California taxpayers are paying banks to have the banks take our taxpayer money and loan it back to us. This is the government racketeering that I'm trying to get you folks to wake up to. This is what is happening to your money. Here's something created by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which again is a federal corporation. They say it right in the name. Called NOW, which is negotiable order of withdrawal. And it says the accrued interest earned on NOW account balances during fiscal year 2009-2010 was $3,943,000. That's a pretty good return. I gotta say, that's what they're making off our money on just what they have in this account. Under investment program, it states that California commercial banks, savings banks, and credit unions receiving these state deposits must secure them with approved securities having a market value of at least 110% of the deposits, or with approved promissory notes secured by mortgages or deeds of trust having a market value of at least 150% of the deposits. So what does that mean? That means they're taking the loan that they gave to you, because that bank is now the main holder of your lien on your home, your mortgage, and backing these funds, the monies that government is investing, the securities, and they're backing it with your own property. Do you understand the tyranny here? Do you understand that you are a slave of your own making? This is happening right under your nose, and you have no idea it's happening. It's just amazing. And of course, I'm I'm sitting here going, geez, how can I get people to understand what government is doing? That they're not only raping you, they're re-raping you. They're raping you through taxation and coming back for sloppy seconds through their banks. I mean, what do you need to hear? At the end of 2009-2010, interest-bearing time deposits were held by 48 commercial banks, 6 credit unions, and 4 savings banks throughout California. Wonderful. Total earnings for the PMIA in 2009-2010 were $423,803,000. These earnings were created as follows. In the general fund, $41 million. Fish and Game Preservation Fund. Did you know there was a fund for that? $638 million profit. Surplus Money Investment Fund. That means all the extra money. I don't know what they're calling extra money, but $223 million in profit. Local Agency Investment Fund, which we talked about, $156 million. Public Employees Retirement Fund, $1 million. And State Teachers Retirement Fund, $426,000. So even the pension funds are investing in these trust account funds that are Commingled funds. The corruption here is most foul. If you can't tell, here's a look at the analysis of the portfolio, meaning what investments are actually in this fund. And we see U.S. Treasury bills, U.S. Treasury bonds and notes, federal agency, I think that's coupon securities, federal agency discount notes. You see it's all mostly federal and commercial banking paper, basically. Corporate bonds, repurchase agreements, reverse repurchase agreements, AB 55 loans, yeah, totaling $65 billion. And this is also very important because we're talking about a summary of investments and earnings for the fiscal year. So this is the cumulative look, and that's what's so great about the CAFR, again, is that we get a cumulative look at how much money has been going in to the funds, how much they're earning each year, and how much that fund is growing or shrinking each year. And of course, in 2001, the average daily investment balance was $39 billion, and we can see, of course, now that has gone up to over $50 billion today. And under the summary of investments and earnings, we can see that the $65 billion in the total investments, whereas in 2001 it was $43.8 billion, and it's been growing slowly ever since. Here's a list of the financial community coverage, meaning the banks that are involved in this, and you can see there's quite a few of these. There's your big ones like Citibank. There's Barclays, which is an international corporation, I think based in England, if I'm not mistaken. And then we get to the section called participation. There were over 1,000 special funds and accounts participating in the surplus money investment fund as of the last day of fiscal year 2010, and their combined deposits totaled $37 billion. Department of Water Resources Electric Power, Highway Safety and Traffic Reduction Fund, Mental Health Services Fund, Public Buildings Construction Fund, California Housing Finance Fund, Unemployment Compensation Disability Fund, Safe Drinking Water Fund, that's probably where they buy the fluoride. Each of these has over $1 billion in each fund. Disaster and Flood Bond Fund, Housing Emergency Shelter Fund, Public Employees Retirement Fund, and State Schools Facility Fund. I mean, geez. Again, the earnings for just the surplus money that they're toying around with, your taxpayer money, was $224 million. Same earnings rate at 0.65%. And finally, we come to the Local Agency Investment Fund. Local Agency Investment Fund was established by Chapter 730 Statutes of 1976, and this fund enables local government agencies or trustees to remit money not required for immediate needs to the state treasurer for the purpose of investment. In order to derive the maximum rate of return possible, the state treasurer has elected to invest these monies as a part of the PMIA. And under participation, we see that as of June 30th, 2010, there were 2,779 participants in this fund, consisting of 54 counties, 474 cities, 1,792 special districts. California is flooded with these special districts, and 289 trustees and 170 bond accounts. So 54 municipal corporate counties and 474 municipal corporate cities, of course these are the big cities, are invested in this account. And finally, under the pooled money investment account, we see a summary of investments and earnings. And this goes back all the way to 1956 and 57 when this fund was initiated. And we see an average investment portfolio of only $393,742,000, as this is listed in thousands, meaning you have to add 3 zeros to all of these monetary amounts, with earnings of $9.5 million. And as we go through the years, we can see that even back in the 70s, we have a fund that's in the billions of dollars. And as we go throughout the years, we see it start to increase in a major way. There's not a point, really, when the fund goes down in any significant way, other than staying where it is. And that just means that the government's using that money for its own devious purposes. But the profits are always there. There's never a negative year when it comes to earnings potential. So even if the fund goes down, they transfer the money out, the earnings potential is always there. And we see that every year the earnings get a little bit bigger, and they start getting into the billions. And, of course, by the time we get down to 2009, we're at $65 billion, with earnings of only $423 million. But, again, in 2006, those earnings were $2.9 billion, almost $3 billion. So, just a note to the folks who are protesting on Wall Street right now, this whole Wall Street, whatever we're calling it. You guys, I know that you have the right gumption, and I know you're probably trying to do the right thing, but you must understand that the stock market is owned by government. So while you have a great idea, and I fully believe in shutting down the stock market, to be perfectly honest, you're protesting a government-owned corporation. You should be protesting the government because government has control of the stock market. Government owns these corporations. I've proved this time and time again, and if you watch the Great Pension Fund Hoax, which is on thecorporationnation.com, you will see that this is a very true statement. I apologize for its length, but it is primary research. So, If you really want to start protesting in your own state, you should start protesting your state treasurer's office. In this case, here's the California State Treasurer's office. Why don't you go camp out at 915 Capitol Mall in Sacramento, California, or give them a call at 916-653-2917 and say, why are you holding all of this money, then loaning it to the banks? The banks, of course, the stocks that are traded on Wall Street, which government owns through stock investments. This is what you should be protesting, not Wall Street itself. Wall Street is just a tool of government. It is actually a corporation owned by government. Okay, so we then come to the quarterly report on the pooled money investment account. And this is actually for June 30th, 2011, where it actually shows an analysis of the portfolio. And I'm just going to include this slide so you can see what it's actually invested in. Your federal agency, debentures, certificates of deposit, banknotes, etc. So again, we can see when we go to this pooled money investment account and local agency investment fund, we can go down the list here and we can see other funds, the Scholar Share Investment Board, California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority, it's just another fund, California Debt and Investment Advisory Commission, all of these have separate funds, California Educational Facilities Authority, California Tax Credit Allocation Committee, California Transportation Financing Authority, it goes on and on and on. Now what's interesting is that when we pull up the 2011-2012 state budget, none of this really gets mentioned. In fact, what they say is that the total of $27.2 billion in changes balances the budget and leaves the state with a reserve of only $543 million. Now, wait a minute. We just covered over $100 billion in these other funds. Where's all that money? Why aren't you telling us about that in the state budget there, Mr. Attorney, who is our state treasurer? Why aren't you telling us about that? I don't understand. Instead, they say that they're going to start requiring community college students to pay $10 more per class unit, pausing the court system's construction program for a year, eliminating the adult daycare program, and child care and dependent tax credits. They're going to reduce the state's workforce by about 5,500 positions, eliminating 20 boards, commission, task force, offices, and departments, including the California Medical Assistance Commission and the Office of Insurance Advisor. All of these things they're getting rid of because they just are saying they don't have a budget. They don't have money. And it's a lie. We just covered that. It's a total lie. And again, more reductions. Are cutting Medicare, juvenile justice, eliminating vertical prosecution grants. Proposition 98 is going to go. Child care is going to go. A 4% across the board reduction. Eliminate state grants for local libraries. Unallocated reduction of California state universities. I mean, all these things they're gonna cut. In-home supportive services, IHSS, 20% reduction in service hours. I mean, the government's supposed to be, this is what they should be concentrating on, not what they should be cutting. But instead, they're only interested in making a profit off of your taxpayer money, giving it to banks, and letting those banks loan it back to government and loan it back to you to supposedly stimulate the economy being government. It's just a full circle, and it's crazy. What's funny is here they even show that the general fund budget summary with all budget solutions was actually negative $1 billion is what it lists here, and now it's in the positive at 1.3 billion. But where's the 65 billion? Where's the 23 billion we talked about? I mean, come on. Here's another example of a fund that's being used to completely screw the general tax-paying public. It's called the Scholar Share Investment College Savings Plan. Basically, when we look at the facts or the fast facts of the savings plan or the fund, we see that $4.1 billion is the amount currently being invested in the Scholar Share College Savings Program. So that's coming from people who are investing for their future to go to college. So the government not only taxes you, it lets you invest in your future taxation. It's actually pretty funny. What's incredible about this is that at the bottom of the list, it says that $833 billion is actually the overall total education loans that are outstanding, both federal and private, as of June 30th, 2010. This is just for California's school system. Now, why is this important? Well, $4.1 billion is the amount currently being invested, but $833 billion is what's owed to the state by the taxpayers to go to their schools. Now, government, of course, requires you to have a college education for certain jobs. It requires you to go to school to get a license to be in healthcare, to get a license to be so many different things, so many different technicians and all these things. So you have to go to the school. They don't offer it for free as so many other countries do. And of course, students who have borrowed from this corporate structure called the state of California and the federal government that supports it owe $833 billion in loans still to the overall total education loans outstanding. So almost $1 trillion is owed to the state of California by taxpayers who were forced to go. So, I mean, Gee, thanks, California, for putting our fresh young minds on antidepressants and then forcing them to pay for the rest of their lives for a crappy education while placing them at the bottom of the list for education in the world. And of course, they're using California taxpayer money to loan to California's taxpayers' children so that they could become good little taxpayers someday themselves and be permanently indebted to the corporation, and then requiring that education again to get a job or a permit to even work in the state. Again, a full circle of corruption here, completely organized crime. What a racket. We're talking about a system that forces you into its structure, not only through the use of its currency, but through the use of taxation. It then uses that taxation and forces you to borrow from your own money to go to school. I mean, oh boy. And of course, over to the left, it states that ScholarShare is managed by Fidelity Investments. Now, of course, Fidelity is the same company, government-owned corporation, that actually holds the CUSIP bonds that are bonded on prisoners and traded on the open market. Fidelity Investments. We're giving our money and it's going to Fidelity Investments. It's going to J.P. Morgan Chase, as we read earlier, to Citibank, to Bank of America, to Wells Fargo. What? Now, if you folks on the Wall Street kick really want to go and protest and do the right type of protest, you need to go where the money is. So here's something that's coming up that you could protest, and you would have a legitimate cause to actually protest. Here it is. Local Agency Investment Fund Conference Reservation. Treasurer Bill Lockyer and the Local Agency Investment Fund, LAIF, staff recognize the economical budget constraints impacting local agencies, especially travel and training budgets. This year's annual Local Agency Investment Fund Conference is scheduled for October 20th, 2011 at the Convention Center in downtown Sacramento, and the registration deadline is October 7th. You want to protest? Go protest these people who are holding $25 billion or $23 billion of your taxpayer money and investing it not without any benefit to you, essentially. You want to protest something? This is where it's at. Go find these conferences. Go find these gatherings of these organized crime bosses like old Bill Lockyer here, the former attorney general with the oath to the Bar Association, and go protest there. This is where the money is. Wall Street, again, it's just a private corporation. It's a government-owned corporation. NASDAQ, a government-owned corporation. It's in the stock reports that government puts out that they own the stock in these companies. Barclays, the rating companies, they're all owned by government. So when a rating company like Barclays or Moody's actually Standard & Poor's actually rates these securities and everything. It's government telling them what to do. It's not a separate entity. It's not a regulatory body. It's simply the government saying that our junk bonds are AAA rated, and they are that way because we own the rating companies. I mean, you guys, stop protesting the wrong way and start doing it the right. Start understanding the CAFR system, because if you don't, you're never going to understand the way the stock market works. And the way the stock market works is the government owns the stock market, the government owns the companies that are traded on the stock market. There is no evil corporate structure that's controlling government. It's quite the opposite. Government is controlling the evil corporate structure. So please, start learning about this CAFR stuff. I beg you, start learning about your local agency investment funds, your pooled money investment, your state treasurer accounts, your pension funds, your state trust funds, your college education funds, unlimited amounts of funds, as we have covered in this presentation. So please start looking into these things. Mr. Lockyer says, as state treasurer, I am also the steward of state money and local government money, which is voluntarily coming led within the pooled money investment account. So he's stating right there that these things exist. There's no doubt about it. Here's what you do. I or my staff will be happy to answer any questions arising from my comments regarding the state's financial condition and the need for federal intervention in the financial markets, or from any event that might ever cause you concern. Well, I'm extremely concerned that you're giving my taxpayer money, or I used to live in California. You're giving California taxpayer money to banks so that the banks can reloan that money to the people. Okay, I am concerned about that. The people, I hope, that are watching this should be really concerned, and I believe that the people should start calling Mr. Lockyer, talking to his secretary and saying, why are you holding my money? Why aren't you repairing our roads? Why aren't you doing the things that need to be doing? And why are you cutting all the services that government is supposed to be providing? That's what you should be doing. If you have a question or concern, please contact the professionals in my investment division and LAIF unit. Sincerely. So he sincerely would like you to call him. Do it. Call up. Don't just sit there on Wall Street, hold up a sign. It's not going to do anything. Go where the money is. Look in the CAFR. Understand what's going on here, and start making your protests count. Start making your voice actually count. Let these guys know that you are starting to understand their game, their organized crime, and start doing something about it. We cannot let this go on. We are slaves to these people. We're no better than cattle. It has to stop. You want to start protesting in the right place? You want to start making a difference? Let these people know you're onto their game. Let them know you know what the CAFR is. Now, I'm going to leave you with one final thing that you got to understand. You got to understand what a slave you are when you read what this particular fund is. This is called the Condemnation Deposits Fund. All right? Here's what it says. The State Treasurer's Office has accounting responsibility for the Condemnation Deposits Fund. And then it says, court-ordered deposits in eminent domain proceedings are accounted for in this fund. Okay? Understand what this is saying. Money is transferred to the Condemnation Deposits Fund as a deposit in condemnation proceedings for acquisition of real property. The state treasurer pays the amount deposited as ordered by court order or decree. What is this saying? This is simply saying that this is a fund that is used to pay you, the taxpayer, when the government decides that it wants your property or your land. So it's going to come in there and it's going to say, well, under law, because everything we do, we make our own laws for, we're going to take your land, we're going to take your property, and then we're going to use your own taxpayer money to pay you for that property. And then we're going to put a Home Depot or a Walmart or whatever. We're going to build houses and we're going to tax you for that too. Of course, we own Walmart. We own Kmart. We own Home Depot. So really all we're doing is taking your property and letting the federal government come in and build its corporations. Corporations for which it makes you use because there's no options left, hardly. You have to spend their money and pay taxes for that. They make you spend the Federal Reserve notes. You can't use anything else. You might get arrested. The whole thing is a racket. And I hope that, of all things, this condemnation deposits fund, which is taking taxpayer money, investing it for future use to pay you when it takes your property, your land. And what it should say, most of all, is that you, the taxpayer, do not have property and do not have land because it can be taken at any time. You do not own anything. Government owns it all. And when it wants it from you, it's going to take it. And it's going to use the money that it forced you to pay in taxes to pay you what it considers fair value, which is always going to be lower than what that actually is. So, hey, if this doesn't hit it home for you, I'm not sure what's going to. You are a slave. I am a slave. You, the free man on the land who ignores this, are a slave, because your land that you're living on can be taken, whether you like to think about it or not. This is the law. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you understood and were angry, I hope, about these coming-led funds. They're in every state. They are an integral part of government, and it is your taxpayer money being loaned back to you because government is giving all your taxpayer money to the banks, paying $9 million in bank fees, writing bad checks so that the bank can collect bounce check fees, apparently. Anyway, again, this is Clint Richardson. Please, check out my websites, thecorporationnation.com, clint4p.com, because I am running for president, and of course my blog, Reality Blogger. Also check out Lethal Injection if you haven't seen it yet. It's an integral part of your learning curve. Learn what vaccines really are and what they really do. That's it. Thanks for listening, and put your energy where it should be, which is where it's not Wall Street. It's government, because government owns Wall Street. Thank you very much.